Hi there, I'm Jen, this is Remembered Reads, and this is going to be a book and book paraphernalia haul that primarily comes from the Book Outlet Boxing Day sale, not the online sale. I live about 135 kilometers away from Book Outlet's physical store where you can shop, so for the past 2 years I've driven out there on Boxing Day and gotten some pretty good deals. And then there are a few other odds and ends that are from the end of the year. Now, I didn't drive to the Book Outlet store on my own. I went with my mother, who I thought was going to be buying things for herself, but as it turned out, she bought me 2 gifts. One of which is a shirt that I wore in another video a little while ago, and that is the one of the Star Wars Read poster shirts with Yoda, because Yoda was always my favorite. I have actually worn that in a video already, but I think because of the angle you can't actually see Yoda in it, you can just see the Read part. So I thought I would share that. She also bought me a book toque, which says, "Fight evil, read books." So, alright, on to the books. So, I bought books 2 and 3 in Mishell Baker's Arcadia Project series. I read the first book in this series about 2 years ago, I think. It is kind of a portal fantasy, but it gives it a science fiction spin in that it presents this fairy portal as actually being an alternate universe. And it is about a world in which fairies are more or less patrons of the arts, but their existence is hidden, and the way they keep it hidden is make sure that all of the liaisons between the two worlds are basically handled and managed by people with mental illnesses, so that if they were to share them with other people, it would be brushed off as some kind of psychosis. I had mixed thoughts about the first one, but I like the idea of it, so I am curious to read some more of this series. And they were very cheap because of the Boxing Day sale. I think the cheapest book that I bought was this one. This was like $1.39, I think. This is Mirage by Somaiya Daud, who I follow on Twitter exclusively because she's wearing a Mass Effect jacket in her profile picture. But I think this book made the rounds on, I think because it was in one of the subscription boxes that a lot of YA booktubers receive. This, I believe, is a fantasy novel aimed at teenagers with a pseudo-Moroccan setting, I believe. And I love a pseudo-Moroccan setting, and as I said, I've been following the author on Twitter for a while, so I feel like I ought to read her book. Next up is Return of Soul by Andy Remic, or Remic, I'm not sure. I picked this up exclusively because it clearly has some kind of alternative First World War setting, and it was in the science fiction section, so I was curious to see what this would be like. It sounds like it's steampunk-esque, perhaps, so I'm definitely curious about that. And I didn't mention this, but on the Boxing Day sale, all of the items were 50% off their cover prices, so I'm holding this up and it looks like it was $5.50, but it was less than that. So I know nothing about this, but I'm definitely curious to see a First World War steampunk, so I'm on board for that. Next up, I have Monica Ali's Brick Lane. This was on the Booker shortlist a few years ago. I have had this out of the library 3 times and never gotten around to reading it before I had to return it, so I figured if I buy it, I'll probably continue to put off reading it just because I tend to put off reading the books that I own, but I will have easier access to it. This, I believe, is about a Bangladeshi family in, I was going to say London, but actually I'm not sure. Somewhere in the UK, in any case. And I love a nice family drama, so... Oh no, it is London. Alright, next up I have The Shadow of the Crescent Moon by Fatima Bhutto. This, I believe, is set in Afghanistan during the American invasion, and I have read a couple of things over the past year or two that take an American perspective on that, which I'm always slightly dissatisfied with, and I'm curious to read this and see how it goes. And this author is somebody who's grown up everywhere, I think. Yeah, Kabul, Damascus, Karachi, and I believe she lives in the US somewhere now, so. And I believe she's a poet, so I'm always curious to see how the language ends up working when poets write novels. Next up, I have Ghost Talkers by Mary Robinette Kowal, who I believe has won a Hugo for a different book. This again has the kind of First World War speculative fiction thing going on, and involves spirit mediums as an actual thing as opposed to a kind of fraud thing, which was what they were in real life. So I'm curious to read that because, again, I like genre stuff with a First World War setting. Next up I have the Yacoubian building. This is This is described as being about political corruption and sexual repression, but I believe that the main idea is that it's just following people in this particular building in Cairo. I generally like that kind of thing where you have a bunch of different characters but a single space, so I'm curious to read that and see if the description on the back is spin or what it's actually about. I also picked up CJ Samson's Lamentation. This is in the Matthew Shardlake series, which I've always said I was going to start reading, and I never do. This is another book, as with Brick Lane, that I've taken out of the library before but have never gotten around to reading. So now I have a copy, and maybe I'll get around to reading this. This is basically a historical mystery series set in the court of Henry VIII. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about this series from people who read historical mysteries, so I'm on board to try it, and hopefully now that I own it, I will read it. I also picked up a coffee table book of photos from Rogue One. This was very cheap. Yeah, I just enjoyed Rogue One. I like Star Wars. I like things where everyone dies. So who doesn't want something that has both of those things? Also, one of my neighbors has retired recently and is emptying out her house because she's looking to downsize, and I was helping her go through some books to see if any of them were valuable, and she let me take this one, which is Great True War Adventures, which is a collection of 19 short military memoirs, the first of which is one of Siegfried Sassoon's, which is why I started looking through it. And this is a book that was published in the UK in the 50s. I think the publication date on this is 56. Yeah, I love war stories. That sounds terrible, and I should not say things like that, but I'm looking forward to reading this. Is that all? Oh no, it's not. Oh, and I forgot one more thing that I got at Book Outlet, and that's Katherine Center's How to Walk Away. This is one that I've had at the library a few times, and I've started reading it and I get frustrated with it, so I put it down. This is a kind of chick lit / romance hybrid, and if you watch my wrap-up videos, you'll know that one of the things I enjoy complaining about is portrayals of disability in romance stories, which are almost always related to the male character when it's a mixed gender couple. But this is one in which the woman is the disabled character, and so I wanted to read it for that reason. But the chick lit style of romance does irritate me in ways that generic genre romance doesn't, even though I think theoretically the genre stuff is a lot more restricted and contains more trash in general, but I don't know. But now that I own it, I can get frustrated and put it away and not worry about it expiring. And at some point I'll talk about it, probably complain about it, because that's what I do with stuff like that. So those are the books that I picked up at Book Outlet's Boxing Day sale. Yeah, if you were shopping if you got any Boxing Day deals, I'd love to hear if they were as good a deal as you hoped. I was slightly disappointed about this deal because the non-book items, like the stuff that my mother ended up buying for me, were only on 30% off, whereas last year everything was 50% off, which was nice. But anyway, if you read any of these, I'd love to hear what you thought of them. And yeah, that's it for now. Ciao.